A very warm welcome to all students. This program is designed for the Bachelor of Arts, particularly for TYBA students in the subject of psychology. It is best suited for semester 5. The course code is PSD 101 and the course title is Statistics for Psychology. In this module, we will cover Unit 3, which is known as the Normal Probability Curve. The module name is Hypothesis Testing, Null Hypothesis, Levels of Significance, One-tailed and Two-tailed Hypothesis, Type 1 and Type 2 Errors. I'm Dr. Alvita De Souza. I'm an Assistant Professor in the Department of Psychology of PES's RSN College of Arts and Science, Farmagudi Ponda, Goa. In this module, we will cover the significance of difference between means, and we will also learn the concepts of standard error, null hypothesis, levels of confidence or significance, size of the sample, two-tailed and one-tailed levels of significance. We'll also be able to understand and describe the difference between means, the concept of standard error, null hypothesis, levels of confidence, size of the sample, two-tailed and one-tailed test of significance. Coming to the first subtopic, the significance of difference between means. We need to know the need and importance of the difference between means. In the fields of education and psychology, on several occasions, we want to know about the significance of difference between means. Now, the sample means could be independent or it could be a correlated sample. Sometimes the sample is drawn from the same population. Sometimes the sample is drawn from different populations. So, many a times, instead of significance of computed sample of means, we may want to know the difference and whether there is a difference between the significance of means. To illustrate what is significance of means and the difference, let us take 3 such occasions where we may utilize significance of means. First and foremost, if a teacher wants to test the relative effectiveness of 2 teaching methods. So what the teacher does is, he divides the students into 2 random groups. So one group is taught with method A and the second group is taught with method B. Now this teacher is not only interested in the significance of difference of means, but this teacher wants to know which one is better, whether method A is better or whether method B is better, and whether there was a significant difference in the methods utilized. Similarly, a researcher may want to study anxiety and whether anxiety is going to affect the reasoning ability of a person in mathematics. So this researcher may induce levels of anxiety in 2 separate groups and then indicate the significance of difference between these 2 means. So over here, the difference between means is something that is very important and is significant for statistics. A third instance is of a person who wants to study the effect of certain medicine or yoga in promoting intelligence. For this purpose, he divides his students into 2 equal groups. The first group is called as the experimental group and the second group is called as the control group. Now, the experimental group is the one that receives treatment. So this group is treated with medicine or yoga exercises, while the control group nothing is done. Finding the difference between means will then help us to draw different and useful conclusions. Now, when we determine difference between means, there are certain basic fundamental concepts. Like the first concept is of standard error. If we successfully draw random samples from a given population and then compute their means and arrange these means into a frequency distribution, the result is a normal curve. Now going further, the standard deviation of this distribution of these sample means is what is called as a standard error. So deviation refers to difference. So this difference that is going to exist amongst a mean, this is what is called as a standard error. It can easily be noted on a chart or a graph. Standard error was taken as a yardstick for testing the significance of the given sample mean. So standard error is synonymous with standard deviation, and often it is used as a yardstick or a sample for testing the significance of a given sample mean. Similarly, we have the concept of hypothesis. As we know, hypothesis is a tentative statement. Under hypothesis, we come across this term called as null hypothesis. So what is null hypothesis? Null hypothesis is a starting point of the solving of a problem related to the significance of difference between means. Now the first task of every researcher is to establish a null hypothesis. A null hypothesis emphasizes that there is no difference between two population means, and therefore, if any difference is found, it is insignificant. The term insignificant here refers to very less. For example, if we have a null hypothesis which is designated by HO, the hypothesis goes this way. There exists no significant difference between the achievement of group A and group B. Now, if this null hypothesis is rejected, then there exists a probability that there is no difference between the means. The third concept is setting up a level of confidence or significance. Now, each and every experimenter has to take a decision about the level of confidence he wants to use to test his hypothesis. At times, this researcher may decide to use 0.05 or 5% level for rejecting the null hypothesis. Now, this simply means that when a null hypothesis is rejected at 5%, the chances are 95 out of 100 that the hypothesis is not true, and only 5 chances that the hypothesis is true. So null hypothesis refers to no difference between A and B, and when it is rejected, it means that we are expecting only 5 chances out of 100 that it is true. At other times, this researcher may prefer to make the research rigid and therefore use a 0.01, also known as 1% level of significance. If a hypothesis is rejected at this level, the chances are 99 out of 100 that the hypothesis is not true, and 1 chance out of 100 that it is true. Coming to the fourth salient concept, the sample chosen for the research may look like a normal curve or a T distribution curve, depending upon the size of the sample that is drawn. Now, if the samples are large, that is, the number is 30 or greater than 30, then the distribution of differences between mean will be a normal one. If the sample is small, that is n is less than 30, then the distribution will take a form of a T distribution, and the shape of the T curve will vary with the number of degrees of freedom. Coming to the next salient concept of two-tailed and one-tailed test of significance. Now, while using two-tailed test, we should know whether or not a difference exists between two means. So while using two-tailed test, we are merely trying to find out whether a difference is existing between two means, whether the first mean is larger or smaller than the second mean is of no concern. The direction for the difference, whether positive or negative, is irrelevant while using a two-tailed test. So when an experimenter wants to test the null hypothesis, M1 minus M2, and whether it is 0 against possible rejection, and then finds it is rejected, he may conclude that a difference may exist between two means. But he does not make any assertion on the direction of the difference. A two-tailed test is non-directional. It is also named as a two-tailed test because it employs both sides, that is positive as well as negative of the distribution. Just like we have two-tailed test, we also have one-tailed test. When a test is concerned with the absolute magnitude of the difference and the direction positive or negative, it is called as a one-tailed test. For example, if we want to plan an experiment to study the effect of coaching work on skills in mathematics, we would take two groups, an experimental group which is provided an extra 1 hour of coaching in mathematics and a control group which is not provided such a drill. Here, we have reason to believe that the experimental group, since they are getting extra training, will score higher on the mathematics test. In cases like this, we will use a one-tailed or a directional test which will indicate the positive or negative difference between means. Coming to the last concept, type 1 and type 2 errors. Now, when we reject a null hypothesis, when it is actually true, it is called as a type 1 error. Type 1 errors are sometimes also known as false positives. Similarly, we could have a type 2 error. So when we accept a null hypothesis, when in actuality it is false, this is called as a type 2 error. Type 2 errors are sometimes also known as false negatives. So these are the terms in summary what we have learned today. We have learned what is a null hypothesis, a two-tailed test, one-tailed test, type 1 error and type 2 error. For your references, Mangal is the main book followed by Pathak and Garrett. Thank you.